Welcome to David Game College Horizon Pods. Today's topic is study skills. With me is Alan Kelly. Alan is the Head of Innovation and Academic Skills at David Game College. Alan, you know, study skills is such an important area for a student to master. So what are the most common challenges students face when trying to improve their study habits here at David Game College?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Theo, for the introduction and for inviting me along today. Study skills are really integral, I would say, to a student's educational journey. They are something which, if they can get it right, it will empower them to achieve what they want to achieve, to meet their goals, their aspirations. It also is a way for students to be able to really develop their repertoire and their mastery of academic skills, of academic performance, etc. When it comes to challenges that many students face, I've been working with students here at David Game College for, I would say, over a year now, and there's definitely a common thread that runs amongst many of the students. And I was looking at some of the conversations I've had with students, and there are three basic and three quite clear challenges that many of our students face. The first one is time management. Too often I see students that are aware of what they have to do, they're aware of what needs to be done, but they just don't know how to actually get it done. They don't know how to get on with things. And the problem is that without effective time management, students often feel as though they're rushed, they may underperform, they're not prioritising tasks properly or effectively enough. Another problem is procrastination. You know, we live in the 21st century where things such as social media, entertainment,
well, some people might
etc.
not. What does it mean?
Procrastination.
Yeah, what does it actually mean?
Procrastination is this idea of being aware of having to do something, but then not doing it. It's the act of actively avoiding completing a task.
So what they're doing is they're actually, like a student would delay it and say, or postpone it. I'll do it another day, and then suddenly,
yep,
they haven't got enough time left.
It is. It's one of those things which, we all do it. When we've got an awful lot to do. Sometimes many of us use procrastination as kind of like a coping mechanism. It's a way for us to say, I have got so much to do. We've all heard this tale of, burying your head in the sand, and it's like you've got so much to get on with. Sometimes it's easier just to say, I cannot do this today. I just need to put it off till tomorrow. I want to collect my thoughts and get on with something. And I see an awful lot of students procrastinating. It's something, and it's not something which is unfixable. It is completely solvable, as we will no doubt have a chat about today.
Well, that's right. I think that's an important element. But all right, so students, some of them have more or better skills than others. But how would you approach the importance of creating a structured study plan so students will develop one and be able to implement it?
So creating a study plan is something which is very useful for students. It allows them to prioritise what they have to do. What I've done essentially here is I've sat down with many students and I've shown them some different techniques for creating study plans. So there's quite an effective approach, and it's using something called the Eisenhower matrix, where, for example, you create a list of all your tasks, you put them onto a piece of paper, and then I get my students to take 4 different highlighter pens, and in one colour they highlight everything that has to be done immediately. So that may, for example, be the homework activities. It may be the revision for tomorrow's AP exam, which is taking place. In the second colour, they may be thinking, okay, you know what, this is a task which is important, but I don't need to do it today. I could perhaps do this tomorrow. And basically through this, these 4 different colour codes, what students can do is they can prioritise the tasks in terms of, what needs to be done with immediate effect. Therefore, those are the things I'm going to be focusing on now. So it is important for students to be able to create this study planner, because what it's going to do is it's going to enable them to, first of all, maximise their productivity. It's going to ensure that they're actually keeping on top of their work. I say to the students an awful lot of the time that when we complete things, when we do tasks, we get that kind of a dopamine rush, that comes to our brain, and it's that sense of achievement. And if I've had some students who've come to me to say, I'm studying tonight, and I say, okay, what are you studying this evening? And the student said, oh, I'm studying geography tonight. Okay, what specifically are you doing? And I'm faced with silence. The student says, well, just geography, I'm just going to look at this topic. But what students need to understand actually is that when it comes to revision, they have to break that revision down into sizable chunks. They've got to look at specific features. So what I've done with many of our students is there's a PDF that I've created for the students, and it's a visual which will allow them to see exactly what revision should look like. So, for example, let's say we've got the subject of geography, okay, and I will get my students to say, okay, I'm going to do some work on that this week. And my first question to them would be, right, how many hours of study should you be doing per subject per week outside of class? And sometimes the students will say, oh, maybe outside of class, 1 hour, 2 hours perhaps. But actually for A-level, it's 7 hours per subject per week. For GCSE, 5 hours. So those are minimum times, but that's a kind of benchmark figure that we should be aiming for these subjects. So then what the student needs to do as part of their plan, their study planner, they need to say, okay, so if I'm doing 7 hours of geography for this week, how am I going to split my week up? How am I going to allocate those 7 hours? So I get the students to essentially split each subject into 4 key parts throughout the week. So the first part they will allocate is homework. So homework is non-negotiable. They have to do that, right? That's something which consolidates what they've done in class. It's something which prepares them for the upcoming lessons. So that might be 1 to 2 hours worth of work there. The second piece of work the student needs to be doing for that week is what we call review. And this is where the students revisit previously learned content and previously learned material. So it might be stuff that they learned a week ago, 2 weeks ago, last month, it might be 12 months ago. But it's really important for students to be kind of revisiting that material as regularly as possible, because by doing that, that idea of revisiting is going to help it really sink into our brains. It's going to help it become something much, much more tangible, something much more easily recalled in the examinations. So we have homework, we have reviews. The third part of the plan, which students need to incorporate every week, is independent learning. Students, especially those at A-level, if they want to achieve the highest grades, they need to substantiate and they need to back up their evidence and their answers with concrete facts and figures and evidence. So what I say to the students as part of their revision every week is, okay, take a theory. So it might be the concept of sustainability that you've been learning about in class. Go away, maybe have a look at a couple of YouTube videos, or look at an online journal or an online article. What that's going to do is it's going to enable the student to get a new piece of knowledge that's going to help them stand out above their peers. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to examinations, our students want to be ones that the examiners are impressed by. And to include one little golden nugget, a little fact, which no other student has included, is something which is very beneficial. Mm-hmm. The final part, the fourth part of the kind of the 7 hours worth of work per subject per week would be application. And this is something which many students often overlook. They will revise, they may do some independent research, but they don't apply it to examination questions. So it's kind of like if I said to you, okay, I'm going to go away and I'm going to learn about health and fitness. I'm going to learn about what it means to build muscle, to eat healthy, to lead a healthy lifestyle, etc. I can have all that theory and all that knowledge in my head, but my body is not going to change. My mind is not going to change physically unless I get up and I actually go to the gym and apply that knowledge. You know, it's one of those things we have to do. So again, students have to apply those knowledge to examination questions. So by following that structure, homework, review, independent learning, and application, the students can actually have 7 hours of meaningful And that's a really important word. The revision for that week has to be meaningful. It's got to be something which the students are able to effectively dedicate time to.
So obviously what they're doing then on a weekly basis is building up their revision for the ensuing exam.
Yes.
But how important is it in note-taking in a class? Because some have that skill, some don't. Do you actually kind of help them and advise them how to take notes in class?
When it comes to note-taking, our students, they have as you say, there's a varying willingness, you could say, or varying abilities when it comes to that. Many of our students will use their iPads, they may use their notes, some may use pens, pencils, that doesn't matter. What we do here is each of our students will have copies of the lesson PowerPoints beforehand. So actually my students can come into class, they can have the PowerPoint, the resources, the PDFs, whatever it is, open on their computers. It could be pre-printed out. They'll have that in front of them. So really what they need to do is focus on the lecture, on the class itself. By doing that, the students can, they can annotate their PowerPoints, their notes with some annotations, with some facts, some figures, something which is that's come out of the conversation, something that's come out of the dialogue within that lesson itself. So I think that's an important thing. We don't necessarily train students in how to take notes, because for me personally, I don't want my students to be writing huge amounts during the lesson, because I feel as though when they're writing during the lessons too much, they're distancing themselves from the true learning that's going on. For me, I think the lessons make an incredible amount of progress when there's a dialogue, when there's a conversation, when the students have a debate with each other. That's where they thrive, and those are the things that they remember. It's not just a case of, I'm just going to sit there and write down everything in front of me.
Well, that would apply for such subjects like geography, history, and so forth, and English. But mathematical subjects, obviously, there's a lot of note-taking there, formulas and so forth. Obviously, there's other techniques in using that as well. Some students struggle, don't they, with balancing the academic responsibilities they have and extracurricular activities. How do you address that with the students?
Again, it comes down to, first of all, prioritising. Students have to say, what is important right now? What is it I have to do? I say to my students that being head of the as part of my job here, should I say, I'm also head of the extracurricular programme at the college, and I'm a firm believer in extracurricular activities. I think they are a wonderful way for students to extend their learning, to give them that something special, something a bit different, something that's going to stretch what they've actually learned within lessons. But it also gives them a sense of escapism. It allows them to take a step back. I said to the students an awful lot during study times, go out, have a walk, have a cup of tea, take the dog out, even just go and have a chat with a family member downstairs, or FaceTime one of your friends and family back home. By doing that, you're giving yourself that sense of, separation. And it's a really good way. I always say to the students as well, it's very much like going to the gym. You wouldn't just go to the gym and do, 200 press-ups or sit-ups in one go. Yeah. You would do a rep, you would have a pause, you allow recovery, and the brain is like that as well. It is a muscle, right? And we need to allow it to have that sense of recovery, rebuild, etc., and then move on. So I think it's very important for prioritization of tasks. I think sometimes as well, it's important for students to be confident in themselves, to be able to say no.
True.
Actually,
it's very true. Yes.
So often
you strike that the balance we're talking about, isn't it?
It is. It's a massive balance, and many of our students are incredibly diligent. They want to achieve, they want to succeed, but they don't want to let people down. Right. And sometimes it's a case of saying, I have 2 examinations tomorrow. Actually, I can't go to the cinema with you tonight. I can't do that. We could do it later on in the week, but maybe not tonight. Because I need to prioritise for tomorrow's examination. And again, I think the other way, just for students to really help this idea of balancing work and free time, is incorporating that into their study schedule.
Absolutely.
So they could actually, as part of a study schedule, instead of having a timetable that runs from 9 a.m. through to 5 p.m., you could have it up until 10 p.m. at night time. And you actually include your evening activities as well in there. I've seen many students do this in the past couple of weeks, and they said it's tricky to create one of these, but actually they said it's quite fun just to look at how their week looks, and they like being able to shuffle things around and do that. And by creating that schedule, the students are able to say, you know what, I'm good. I have a good balance here between what I have to do, my obligations, but also things which are just going to put a smile on my face, and going out with my friends and doing whatever. So
excellent.
That's nice.
That's excellent. And this day and age, there are a lot of other tools and resources available for students. And what type of techniques have, or do you recommend to students, such as apps or anything of that sort? Is there anything which you actually use?
Yeah, we do promote a lot of technology here within the college, and it all comes down to this idea of active learning. So active as opposed to passive learning. And, passive learning is pretty much just being a recipient of the knowledge, somebody who sits there and listens, or just literally reads the textbook and takes it in. Mm-hmm. By doing that, it's not really going too far into your brains. You're not really absorbing it. For you to be able to really learn something, you have to be critically thinking. You need to be making a judgment. You need to be evaluating it. And that's where active learning comes in. There are quite a few tools out there which enable students to actually do the learning as opposed to just receive that learning. Mm-hmm. One of my tools which I use an awful lot within social studies in particular is apps like Quizlet. It is great. It's and I'm not promoting the the company here, yeah. But it's a very good website for students to use, because it is they can, for example, type in the theme or a topic. So they could type in the theme of 1917 Germany, or they can, for example, type in sustainability in London. Right. And what would happen, and if they type in their exam board, the exam syllabus, for example, what it does is it generates a whole lot of quizzes for you, and students can actually assess very themselves. Good. It's quite nice. It's a good way for students to be able to test their knowledge on case studies. You can create your own case studies on it. The students can compete with each other. Mm-hmm. We've pulled it up at the end of a lesson sometimes, where the students have actually had a competition in class just for a couple of minutes. And it's a good way for students to be able to test themselves. They can do it on their phones. So Quizlet, Kahoot, they're very good websites. We also have our new artificial intelligence experience, and our artificial intelligence culture that's immersing us at the moment. And I think there's huge ways for students to be able to embrace AI. For example, I was speaking with some students the other day about, for example, things like ChatGPT and Microsoft Copilot, and they were really struggling with generating some ideas for a presentation, for example. And I said, well, okay, you've had a look on the internet, but you're spending an awful long time actually doing this here. So why don't you go into ChatGPT and just have a little bit of a look? Mm-hmm. And they said, oh, I can't do that because it's cheating. Mm-hmm. And I said, no, I'm not asking you to create your presentation using ChatGPT. What I've asked you to do is to actually use it as part of the ideation process. Mm-hmm. ChatGPT is a wonderful, wonderful thing, because what it does...
Research.
It is gathering those ideas. It's bringing them in from a multitude of different locations. And the student has found some great ideas in a fraction of the time. And now the student can use that time to apply it to critical thinking.
Doesn't it?
It does. And it gives them that sense of, actually, I'm using my time, again, meaningfully here. I'm not just wasting it. I know myself, when I was doing one of my master's degrees as a Master of Research, and I had to do a huge amount of research whilst doing that, and I only wish that I had ChatGPT there, because that would have been a great way to get some information.
You had more. I want to move on, because at the end of every academic year, there are exams.
Yep.
These feared exams. And exams come in many different formats, multiple choice and so forth.
Yeah.
So what preparation do you give to our students in order to be able to be confident when they walk into that exam room and will start straight away to answer questions?
Mm-hmm. So there is a great deal that we have in place here for students, and I think I'm incredibly proud of the colleagues that we have here at the college, and also the way that the students are embracing what we have on offer, because we, for example, that I have a program which is Supercharge Your Study Skills, essentially. Students can book an appointment with myself. It takes them directly to my calendar. They can see when I have sessions free that week. I have about 10 to 12 sessions free that are dedicated towards this. And students can book a session with me looking at either study skills, it might be exam technique, it might be essay writing, it might be research skills. I facilitate probably, for example, this week since Monday, today's Friday, so it's kind of, this week I've had actually about 14 appointments with students, and it's great to see the enthusiasm there. Some weeks, for example, I have had quite a few students come to me to say, you know what, we would all like to do some essay or some exam preparation sessions, looking at keywords and thinking about the command words which are used. So I thought, well, actually, instead of doing the same session multiple times, let's just take the students at the same time into the lecture theatre, and we will do it as a mini seminar or a lecture with them. And it's a great way for students to be able to see things which perhaps the teacher has not been able to go through with them in a lesson. I'm not in any way replacing the teachers. The teachers we have here are incredible, what they do for the students, the way they support their students. But obviously time within lessons is finite, and actually sometimes students just need a bit more input to help support them. And that's where the study skills programs that we have on offer here really, really kick into action. I, for example, today been working with a student who was, it's a student who is apprehensive about upcoming A-level examinations next year. It's a student who has English as a second language and really struggles to articulate an evaluation, because this student came from a country where educationally it's very, very different from the UK.
Yes. And
as we've said before, educational standards and ways of teaching, ways of learning are hugely different across the world. And the student is very, very competent, but just felt a little bit unsure in themselves about actually how to answer these exam questions. There are other things we do as well, such as with a few of my classes I've done walking, talking mock exams before, which is quite a fun way of doing things.
That's good.
Where actually you will take, you go through the paper minute by minute with the students, and you're saying, okay, in the next 20 seconds you should be on to question 2, in the next 2 minutes you should be on to question 3. And by doing that, it's showing the students the pace that they need to be working at. Yeah. And it's about removing barriers for them. It's about empowering them to say that, okay, yes, I've got 90 minutes to do this examination here. Yes, I have to write about 5 different case studies, but you know what? I can do this. It's the question that I'm going to be nervous about.
I need to plan my time.
Absolutely. We don't know what the questions are going to be in that exam, but everything else we can control.
Yes.
We can control our nerves. We can control the anxious feelings we have before the examinations. I have actually done a couple of sessions as well, interestingly, with students on mindfulness in preparation for examinations.
Well, that was going to be my final question.
Oh, was that good? Oh, so let's go on to that.
Exactly. It's the mental and physical well-being, and how is that managed in such a heavy academic workload that they have?
Yeah, I think there's a few different things you could really focus on here. The first one would be prioritising self-care, actually getting the students to think about things such as meditation. I have actually done a couple of meditation sessions with students in the past before, showing them things such as desk yoga or chair yoga, where you're actually in your seat, and it's giving you tools, stretching your neck, it's stretching your arms without actually having to get up. Things which they can do whilst they're studying at home in the evenings or in the library. You're not having to get down onto the floor to do anything. But it's a great way for students just to help you relax, recenter yourself. There is another thing which obviously I really promote with the students, and for many of them it has worked, is something called the Pomodoro technique. And this is a way of revising without overwhelming yourself. So students can, for example, let's say they're studying a concept within history, and instead of saying, okay, I'm going to study this over the next 3 hours, what they do is they work intensely without any distractions for between 30 to 40 minutes. At 40 minutes, they give themselves a quick break. 5, maximum 7 minutes. They can do whatever they want. Go to the bathroom, have a drink, have a quick chat with whoever, etc., go on to TikTok, whatever it is, and then immediately get back to work again. By doing that, you're giving, as I said before, your brain that chance to just relax for a second. And when you kick back in with the work, what happens is that you get that sense of a rush. It's like when you start, if you've been out for a run and then you stop, and then when you start again, you can run at a little bit faster pace. You've got that extra bit of energy there. And by doing that, it's a great way for students to be able to recenter themselves. I also really encourage them to get outside and exercise regularly. I think it's a great thing. We've spoken about, playing tennis, going for a run, etc. And it's great to see the enthusiasm of our students. I've had this week 4 or 5 students coming to me to ask, can we have a running club here at the college? Can we do a walking club? We'd love to be able to have something during the day where we can just have a break between lessons and actually just go out for a run along to St Paul's Cathedral or back again. It's only a couple of kilometres there and back, but it's still a good opportunity. And I think the final massive tip I would give to the students with regards to this mental and physical well-being is sleep. They must ensure that they're getting enough sleep every single night. I speak with many students who've said they've been trying to finish off homework and they've perhaps not gone to bed until 1 or 2 in the morning. And this happens everywhere. And as staff, as professionals, we're also guilty of working late at night a lot of the time. But it's important for us to be able to say, you know what? No, we have to have that work-life balance. Being able to switch off your computer. The tasks that you're doing, perhaps in an evening, are not necessary. Prioritise the tasks which are important. Switch off TikTok before you go to bed. Try not to be watching movies when you go to bed. And certainly don't be staying up too late at night time, because it's just going to make you feel awful the next day. And concentration levels will be certainly lacking.
Well, Alan, thanks very, very much. I mean, it's so important that the students do have proper guidance and study skills, and I see that here at David Game we do. So to our listeners, for more information on all of our programs and any topics that we discussed today's podcasts, they can be found on davidgamecollege.com. Thank you for listening and look forward to the next podcasts. Goodbye.